seen the first column, vertical, okay? Where if positive x squared goes up, negative x squared goes down. Now, I know you haven't seen this standard form before, because when you've seen quadratics, you've seen standard form as this, correct? You can still talk to me, just, video, okay, you can respond. Okay, so this is what you've seen standard form. This is actually what a standard form, if we're talking about all kinds of parabolas, whether it's vertical or horizontal, these are what your standard forms are, okay? If x is squared, this is our column. If y is squared, this is our column, okay? X and y are still variables. H, K, and P are numbers. Those are numbers that you'll either be given, like we're going to be given numbers over here, or you'll have to plug in to find. Okay? The vertex of a graph, like this right here, that's a vertex. This is the vertex. So how would you describe a vertex? Point where the graph does what? Turns, okay? So it's like the perfect middle point that makes the graph fold in half, right? The axis is the line, so either a vertical line or a horizontal line. The vertex is that point. That either it's from increasing to decreasing, it goes back up, or it's like this, it's on the side. Okay, we just talked about the focus and the directrix at the beginning. Axis is what cuts it in half. Okay, so for this first part, I'm trying to give you examples of what you're going to see on your homework. Okay, so it says the equation of the parabola with a given information, then you're going to graph it. Well, your very first thing you have to do is you're going to have to figure out what column does my information fall in. Because you can't have a vertical parabola and a horizontal parabola as the same equation. These are different equations. Okay? So I just told you on this chart that the vertex is always what? The vertex is always HK. Does that help us know what column it's in? No. Okay? That just tells us that we know that this is H and K. Okay, now the focus and the directrix can help us figure out what column it's in. Okay, the directrix should be the easiest one to figure out. Okay, why would I say that?
And you're just subtracting the numbers.
You're subtracting the numbers, but what about the directrix? What's in front of the equations? It's either x equals or y equals, right? So if I'm in this column, my directrix is y equals. If I'm in this column, my directrix is x equals. So what column am I in for this problem? The vertical column, right? Because it says the directrix is y equals. I don't even care what these numbers are to figure out if it's going to be a vertical graph or a horizontal graph. So I automatically know, just based on that this says y equals, that my equation has to look like what the vertical equation looks like. Okay? Now, if x and y are always x and y, what do I have to find values for? What are my other letters, other variables that have to have numbers? H, P, and K. So I have to plug in for H, P, and K. Which ones do I already know?
H and K.
How do I already know H and K? Because that's the vertex. So what's the only thing I have left to find? P. Okay, so this is where we're going to use, which you can use, there's a couple different ways you can do it. Since you just did systems of equations, I'm going to do it that way. Okay? You know your focus is H, K plus P. So I know this is H, and that's K plus P. So I know that K plus P is equal to -5. Does that make sense how I know that? I just went straight from what the equation was for the focus and I set it equal. Okay, which one of these do we already know? Okay, what's K?
0.
0. So I know that 0 plus P is -5, so what's P equal to? -5. Do I have everything I need to know to write an equation? Yes. So then I just plug it in. So my equation would be x minus 0 squared equals, now how do I get -20?
-4 times -5.
4 times -5, because your P was -5. Okay, now what do we still have to do? What does the directions say? Graph it. Okay, don't make this super, super hard. And I don't know exactly what Ms. Draper is gonna require of you, okay? But I would do 3 points, that's me, okay? So, 1 point I automatically know is 0, 0. How do I know that point already? Because it's the vertex, okay? Then I would pick which variable is squared, x or y? X. I would put numbers in for x, because if you put numbers in for y, then you have to do square roots, and no one wants to do square roots, okay? Pick a number on either side of your x and plug it in, okay? Now, normally I would just use 1 and -1, but that number in front is like -20. So if that's gonna make you have a really, really small number. So you have a request. I'm gonna do like 4 or 5 or something. Okay, so if I did 5, what would I do on the other side? -5, right? Because these are symmetrical, so you want to get the same values on either side. Just put on my desk. That's fine. And then your study guide will go in her tray. So you can go do it now or you can do it later. I guess. That's what third period told me.
Is her door open?
I don't know. Let me check. Alright, so if I plug these in, if I plug in 5, what's 5 minus 0? What's 5 squared? So I would have 25 equals -20 times y minus 0, so it's trying to find y. So how would I solve for y? Peyton, how would I solve for y? How will you leave your head up and I won't call on you, okay? So if I distribute this, that's not going to change anything. That's still going to be -20y. So how would I solve for y? How do I get rid of the -20? Divide it. Okay. So those are both divisible by 5. So this would be -5/4 or -1 1/4. They're a tough crowd today. Which means what's my answer going to be to -5? I'm not positive they're the exact same number. Okay, they're the exact same number because they're symmetrical. If you don't trust me, plug it in. -5 minus 0 is -5. -5 squared is 25. This is the same equation that we're solving that we just solved up here. Okay? So then when I graph, I have 0, 0, 5, -1 1/4, -5, -1 1/4. So my graph goes like this. Okay, we'll do same directions for number 2. Okay, so this time I'm not giving the vertex, I'm giving the focus and the directrix. So if I just look at the directrix, which column would I be in, the vertical or the horizontal? Horizontal, right? Because if I look at my directrix, it's x equals. So I know that my equation is going to look like y minus k squared is 4p times x minus h. Okay, now I'm not given the vertex, so I don't know h and k already. So now I want to label, what do all these things mean? Okay, so if I look at my focus, I go to my chart, the first point is h plus p. So I know that h plus p equals -3. Okay, what's the second part equal to? The focus. Okay, so I already know that k is 3. So I have to find h, k, and p. Those are 3 things you have to find. Now automatically we already know k is 3. But I still don't know h and p yet. Okay, but what about my directrix? If my directrix is x equals 3, what's the formula for my directrix? X equals h minus p. So I know that this is h minus p. So I know that h minus p equals 3. And I know you guys just took a test over the systems of equations. You have 2 equations, 2 variables. P's cancel. So I have 2h equals 0. Divided by 2, so what's h equal to?
0.
0, so then how do I find p? Once you find one answer, you plug it back in. So then I know 0 plus p equals -3, so p equals -3. Okay, do we have everything we need to write the equation? Yeah. So I just plug everything where it goes. So y minus k, so -3 squared equals, so I need 4 times, so -12 times x minus h, so x minus 0. And if you guys have like x minus 0 or y minus 0, you don't have to put that in there. Like this is the same thing. Okay? So like over here on this one, if you had x squared was -20y, that's the same equation. You don't have to put in minus zeros. Okay, I just try to be consistent. So I do it the same way every time. Okay, so if I'm in a graph, and I know my vertex is h and k, so 0, 3.
Mrs. Baker gonna be here today?
Mrs. Baker is here today, I think.
Her room's black,
She has 8th graders. They're on a field trip.
so she's not gonna be here. Got it.
Well, she's not on the field trip, but I don't know where she is
Oh,
right now.
okay.
But she just has 8th graders first period. So she's
Okay.
probably like running copies or,
Okay, thanks.
you're welcome. I don't know why I'm everyone's keeper. I'm gonna go home today, just so everyone knows. Alright, now, which variable is being squared? X or Y?
Y.
Y, okay, so when I plug in numbers, I want to plug numbers in for Y. So if my Y is 3, I want to plug numbers in on either side. Now, I I don't care, like, I always usually say just pick one above and one below. I didn't do that over here because 20 is a big number, it's not really gonna matter, okay? As long as you pick a number on either side. So if I put in 4, I'm putting it for y, so what's 4 minus 3? What's 1 squared? So then I would have 1 equals negative 12x, so what would x be equal to? Not 13, because how would you get rid of this? Divide. Don't add, divide. So this would be negative 1/12. The farther number you pick away, the less chance you are having a fraction. It's okay to have a fraction. Okay? Now, why did I get rid of the parentheses x minus 0? Because what is x minus 0? It's just x, right? So I didn't have to put that part on there. So then what would my answer be if I put 2 in for y? The same thing, because they're symmetrical. Okay? So we already know this one's going to open either to the right or to the left because we're in a different column. So this is going to look different than the parabolas that you're used to seeing. Okay? So I have 0, 3, negative 1/12, 4, and negative 1/12, 2. Bless you. So which way is this opening up? To the left. See how it's curving like this? Okay. Alright, how do you feel about this? Good? Bad?
Good.
You want to do another example of this? You want to move on to another set of directions? Move on? Alright, I'm going to assume that you guys know something and I'm not sure if you do. So if you don't, then we'll back up. And I'm going to put this video on Mrs. Draper's Canvas. So if you want to go back and rewatch it at any time, you can. Okay, so instead of being given like Vertex, Focus, Directrix, you're going to be given an equation, and you're going to have to make the equation look like standard form by completing the square. Okay. And this is what I'm not 100% sure if you guys know how to do that. Okay, so figuring out what column it's in. You're looking at what variable is being squared. So is my x being squared or my y? X, okay. So how do I know then we're going to be in the vertical column? Because x is squared in the vertical column, right? Okay, so I need to make my equation, it's going to have to look like this. So I need all my x's on the left, everything else on the right. If y was squared, you want all your y's on the left and all the x's on the right, okay? So I'm going to leave x squared minus 14x over here, but I need to move these two over there. So how would I do that? Add 12y and
Subtract 73.
subtract 73. Good. Oops. Okay, then you're going to complete the square. So, first step in completing the square is you look to see if there's a number in front of the square. So, if there's a number in front, then you have to divide by that. If there's not, this is when you do half of b squared, and you're going to add it to both sides. Okay, so half of negative 14 is negative 7. Negative 7 squared is 49. And you're going to add that to both sides of the equation. So this would be x squared minus 14x plus 49 equals 12y minus 73 plus 49.
How did we get the 1/2 b?
From the formula when you learned how to complete the square? You've not done completing the square?
No.
So, okay, so completing the square. The goal is you make it be a perfect square, which means whatever in here is the same thing. So like x plus 3 would be x plus 3 squared. X minus 2 is x minus 2 squared. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, so your goal is to make that. That's what it means when you have to complete the square. So the step 1, so I'm going to go through the steps here. The step 1 would be get the squared parts on the left, everything else on the right. So you're going to group your parts together. Does that make sense when I want to write that? I don't know. That's not really how you solve a regular quadratic, but you need to get them in order anyway, so I will go with that step. Okay? Then you have to take, to make this a complete square, okay, so then you would divide by a. If there's any number in front of the squared, you would have to divide everything by that. Okay? Then your third step, in order to make this a perfect square, you take half of b and you square it. And you're going to add to both sides. Okay? So that is actually how you make it a perfect square. We're not done with the steps, but those are like your steps. I'm sorry, I just assumed that you guys already knew how to do that. Okay, so does that make sense now? Where I got these numbers from then? Okay, so a half would be the half. The b, that's your number in front of x. So we're assuming like this is like the a is in front of x, and the b is in front of the x. Okay? So then I take half of negative 14, which was negative 7, and negative 7 squared, I got 49. This number will always be positive. You add that to both sides. Okay, why do I have to add it to both sides? Because I have to make the equations equal to each other. Okay? Then this now becomes, you just completed your steps, this now is a perfect square. This number, so if this was x squared, it's x. If this was y squared, this would be y. This right here is what this is factored down. Your shortcut is this number right here, your half of b. That's the shortcut to get that number. Okay? If you want to do it the long way, how you did this is, I don't know who you had for Algebra 1. But Ms. Baker does multiply and add, multiply to get 49, add to get negative 14 is negative 7 and negative 7, which is the same thing I got here. Okay, so you could factor it and get this, or this is the shortcut. Okay, then the right-hand side, we combine like terms. So what's negative 73 plus 49? Don't know, somebody tell me if
Negative
the
24.
negative 24. Okay, does that look like this then? We're close, right? The left-hand side does, but the right-hand side needs parentheses, right? Okay, so the right-hand side, in order to finish this out, you factor out this first number out of the right-hand side. So this would be x minus 7 squared equals 12, because that's what's in front, y minus 2. Okay, how do I get y minus 2? Okay, because if I take it divide by, right, factoring is the same thing as dividing. So 12y divided by 12 was y, negative 24 divided by 12 is negative 2. Okay, and then you would graph it. Alright, somebody have their, forget what pages that she said your homework was. Your homework is page 183 and 184, and I'm assuming that means all the problems.